Here's my overrated for the week. The boy Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers. Now,
shots fired.
For the better part of this decade, Trey, we've looked. They've been competitive. What did they play in something crazy like 3 back-to-back national title games? They've always kind of been competitive this decade. Dabo's always had his boys ready to go. They've had talent that come through.
Great quarterback play.
Great quarterback play. And here's the thing. Everybody was I was high on DJ, and I like DJ. I want DJ to do well, man. Comes from John Bosco off the West Coast. And I remember this last year, right? Everyone was saying, like, was he going to push Trevor Lawrence? What was Dabo going to do to get DJ in the game because of how good he is? And, man, Clemson has just looked purely mediocre. Now, I tried to give what the first game they played Georgia. I tried to just chalk it up as Georgia. Georgia looks unreal on defense this year. They look unreal.
Yeah,
but then I watched this team play Georgia Tech last night. And this is the same Georgia Tech team that lost to Northern Illinois that Michigan just beat 63-10. So this shouldn't have been even a close game. And really, I think they were actually about to lose, but I don't know if you saw it. The fourth play call that Georgia Tech made at the end of the game was terrible. Like, they should have tested the edge. And so I'm looking at Clemson, man, and I had to ask, I'm like, is this era over? Like, is this era over for Dabo and Clemson? Because we know they have made their mark on high-powered, efficient offenses, man. They got dudes that can go make plays. They got athletes they're going to put in space. They always have really good quarterback play. I mean, I'm going to take us back. You got to remember, like, Taj Boyd. Like, Tosh was the dude. You had Deshaun Watson. Like,
Sammy Watkins.
DeAndre
Hopkins.
All these guys for the past decade, man. These are Clemson Tigers. And I'm looking at that team, and I'm like, who's your guy? Like, who's your guy? Like, you used to be able to look at Clemson and say, that's the quarterback and that's their receiver, that's their running back.
Yeah, 4 of them.
There's always somebody. And I just for me, I think they're overrated. I think the ACC in its entirety this year is overrated, but I always expected kind of Clemson to do what they do. And, man, if I'm being honest, they just looked mediocre, and if that's the case, and from what everything else we've seen in the ACC, I don't think they have anybody that's willing to even compete in the CFP this year. And Clemson, who probably would have been their best bet, unless Dabo just kind of figures it out middle of the season, which I don't think he can. I'm not really sold on DJ just yet. Maybe it's the offensive play call. I don't know what it is. I just don't think Clemson has it.
What I think it is that, and I said this in an earlier episode, like, Clemson has always just been a team that could just do what they do.
You did say this.
And like, they could always just rely on the fact that the guy they have on their side of the field is going to be better than the guy that's lined up on the other side of the field. And so, I mean, whatever play we call, they can know it's coming, but they can't stop us. And I feel like that's something they've been able to build an identity on both sides of the ball.
Right.
Where now maybe just, I don't know what it is. I mean, obviously you hit a hotbed of talent for so many years that maybe the guys right now, like, they don't have quite that ability, and it's been a challenge maybe for the coaching staff because they're like, man, we're recruiting the same level caliber of players, but you still just don't know what that kid's going to turn into until it's actually time to lace him up and get on the field. So I think that could be part of it. Real quick, we skipped the weekend surprise, so we'll do that right after overrated. Normally we go bold prediction review, weekend surprise, then overrated. That's my fault. I just realized that while you were talking. So I'll go ahead and do my overrated and then my weekend surprise. You can do your weekend surprise, then we'll hit true minute drill. So
let's do it.
My weekend overrated is OU, and you've already kind of talked about them a little bit. And let me just clarify this as well, especially from last week, because I got a little bit of flack when I was talking about Notre Dame. And
you did.
We're not saying overrated does not mean you're saying it's a bad football team. So, like, for me, I'm not saying OU is a bad football team. I'm saying they're overrated. Right. OU has a very good football team. OU will probably win the Big 12. But if you think OU is the third best team in the nation, I feel like you're sadly mistaken. Now, I'm not going to call you an idiot because, you know, there's a reason OU's ranked that high, and a lot of it has to do with their recent history and who their coach is and who their quarterback is, and a lot of it's based on, I believe, what the potential for them to have this season. But just early on, what they've shown, they are not the third best team in the country. They're just not.
Even close. Not even
so
close.
I'm sorry, OU fans, but your team is not that good. They're good. They'll probably win the conference, but right now, as it stands today, you can't convince me that they're the third best team in the country. And so I do think that there's a good chance that they're going to lose a conference game, maybe two. And I'm going to go ahead and say this. I think they're going to lose to the Longhorns. I think they're going to lose to the Longhorns. I do. I think that rivalry game always gets a little weird, no matter how good or bad each team is.
That is true.
Not that OU hasn't just blown Texas out time again here and there.
Right.
I just have a feeling that this might be a year where they lose that game. And I also think, as much as it pains me to say this, I think they also got to watch out for a team like Iowa State.
Yes.
Who's going to be very strategic and calculated at how they attack the weaknesses of OU. And I say that because OU's weaknesses have really been on display here early on in the season. You already said this, but I'm going to say it again. Nebraska did everything possible to lose that game. Okay, they were a complete disaster, whether it was penalties, mishaps, poor execution. Like, they did everything to beat themselves and still in the end had a chance to win. I mean, they still in the end had the possession, one possession down, their ball, time on the clock, with a chance to go down and at least tie the game, maybe win it if Frost would have chose to go for two. But then it was a sack, game over. I mean,
right.
I'm just thinking, though, as bad as Nebraska played, as bad as they beat themselves, the fact that they were still in that game, I mean, that should cause some alarm and some red flags for OU and their fans.